So it's mid-January, it's really cold outside, it's like 10 degrees, there's snow on the ground, there's ice on the ground's frozen solid, can't dig a bit. So I thought I'd spend today in the relic room organizing my finds from last year. So what I'm going to show you on the pool table here is a bunch of stuff I found last year that I have not yet put away. Now I've already put away most of my water finds, so unfortunately you're not going to see many of those. I did not make a video this year, don't know why, but what you're going to see here are a lot of my land finds with a few water finds mixed in. So let me show you what I found here. We'll just take a couple minutes, go around the table real quick. If you have any questions about anything you see, just ask me. Just note the timestamp if you would, so I can tell exactly what you're talking about, and I'll explain to you what it is if I know. So let's get to it. We'll just go around real quick, take 2 or 3 minutes. I'll give you some highlights. One thing I did want to point out though, you'll notice these yellow pieces of paper under every pile. And what this is a note to me telling me where I found the relics. And I do that because I keep track of everything I find and where it comes from, whether it be from a certain farm or certain field or battle or whatever. And I recommend you do that as well. But let me just show you what we have. As you guys know, I love axes, and this is an axe I found. This is a sawed-off musket barrel. If you look here, this is the nipple right here. You can see the barrel's been eaten through, so you can see the inside. It's obviously sawed off. This was a cool find right here. This is part of a sword blade from the Civil War. Someone broke it into 3 pieces and threw it in the river, and these are all together, right within a couple feet of each other, so they did that on purpose, which is kind of interesting. Unfortunately, the big brass hilt was gone, so it was probably, someone probably found that fishing years ago. This is a lock plate off of a musket, Civil War musket. It's in really nice shape. Some other odds and ends. This is part of a fuse to a cannonball. This is an old leg hold trap. I don't know if this is handmade or not, but it's a lot different than most of them that I find. These are a few water finds right here. This is what's called a script A button. This is a Confederate button, and they're pretty rare, so I was really happy to find that thing. Here's a neat Marine Corps button that I found. Unfortunately, I hit it when I dug it up. I think this is pretty old. I don't think it dates to the Civil War, but it's probably not too long after that. This is a cool knife. Really like that. It's one of my favorites. This pottery here is actually Indian pottery. There's chunks of it everywhere. Lots of different kinds. This is an interesting piece here. This is part of a pot. You can see it's got a hole in it, and I was told that the Indians would put holes in the tops of the pot so that they could carry them around with ropes and whatnot. It's like a little handle, so I thought that was pretty cool, so I kept that. Some buttons. These are some worked pieces, like an arrowhead, or they call them points, but I'll just call everything arrowheads today. There's another one here, a little quartz one. Some more bullets. These are some more sinker bullets. See, this is made out of a mini ball. You can see the rings in it right here. It's from the Civil War. They'd punch a hole in it so they could use it as a sinker to go fishing. Find lots of those. Some more arrowheads and whatnot. More piles of bullets. This is the inside of a Civil War belt buckle, or this might actually be a belt buckle from the Civil War. It's called puppy paws. I'm not sure. I think they actually did make some like that. There's an old coin that a soldier banged up really bad. Some bullets. This is some old pottery. It's called feather edge. It usually dates from like the late 1700s. So if you ever see this in the fields when you're metal detecting, you know you're on a very old site, at least for here in the States. This is a scabbard tip to a bayonet or sword. Probably bayonet, I suppose. More bullets. Lots of bullets here. And again, everything's marked as to where I found it. Find a lot of coins on land, but a lot of the land coins are really hard to see. You can actually make out the Lady Liberty on this one just barely, but you really can't even clean those things up, because if you try to clean it, all the detail would be gone. A few more coins. There's a little Spanish coin there. More buttons. These are most of the shells that I found this summer. These are all Civil War. All my World War II stuff is already done, and I already made a video of that. But just to show you the different variety, these are like, this is a Confederate. He's a Confederate here. This is a Yankee. This is actually a Civil War shell, believe it or not. It's a little tiny thing. This was used by the Confederates. They imported these from England. This is where I drilled the shells out. You can see this nice hole going down in there, and I flushed all the powder out, so everything here is safe. There's the fuse. But I do that with all of the shells except for solid ones, which don't need to be drilled. This is called a side loader, You see it has a fuse in here. This is Confederate, and they would actually have a hole in the side of the shell, and they'd put little lead balls in there, and then they'd fill the hole in with a piece of lead, and that's what that is right there. That's what that little hole is. Those are actually kind of pretty valuable. Here's a few of the World War II things I found. I showed you the 75mm shells, but what I haven't showed you yet are the little 37mm shells that I found. Now these are all solid shot as well. This hole in the bottom is where the tracer compound went. And this point here is not a fuse, it's actually just what they call a windshield. And I'll show you in detail in my next video what those things are. This is a piece of the canister that you saw in some of my videos already too. And I worked that up just a little bit so you can see the little balls in there. But this was fired out of the same gun as this, but this was used against personnel, people up close. So it's like a big shotgun. More bullets, lots of bullets. Don't see anything too amazing here to show you, but nice big buttons. There's a nice large cent. Can actually read the date pretty good on that one. 1837. Now I have just rubbed that like with my fingers like that. I will not clean that anymore. If I put water on this coin, all that detail would be gone and you would not be able to read anything, kind of like this. This is an old coin too, but you see there's no detail on it. So just want to, when you find copper coins like this, you just want to leave them like that if you can. Here's a nice plate that I found in the spring. This is a fuse that goes to a cannonball. That comes out of one of those Confederate cannonballs over there. Well, right there. Just that one right, just like that. After it explodes, these things fly out and you can find them and they look just like that. Oh, here's a neat plate. This is another purple plate. This was found this past summer in the water. I thought this was a Confederate plate when I found it. I was really freaking out. But it actually says Budweiser on it, so I'm thinking that's probably not Civil War. Tongue in cheek. More bullets, more coins. You can see the different colors you get out of the ground. It's kind of a. This is a Virginia halfpenny. It's really hard to read, but I can tell by the design. And I think they were made in England and shipped over here to Virginia. Large cent that was found in the water. Date's not really readable. This is kind of cool. This is from an old colonial site. And I saved some of these oyster shells. Look how big they are. These are huge compared to what you get nowadays. But back then, oysters were plentiful and they were large. I saved a couple of the shells, got some little like shoe buckle thingies here. Did get one piece of silver out of that site, and an animal tooth, a few other things. This was a base plate off of one of the shells, artillery shells. This is a little gold coin that I found early in the spring last year. It's a $1 gold piece. Look how tiny they are. That's why you have to dig everything when you're out digging. These are the finds from one of my last videos. This was the honey hole video. Probably recognize the spoon. These pieces of epaulette, which were shoulder scales, part of the uniform. This is the bullet that I found. It's not a Spencer. I don't know what it is. Might be a Henry's. I don't really know my bullets that well. So here's a carved one. This is kind of a nice carved bullet. Soldiers would sit around camp bored and they would just grab a bullet and carve on it with a knife and make things out of it. A lot of people call them chess pieces. I'm not convinced they were all used for chess, but we'll just stick with that. Alright, so that's about it for my summer finds. What I'm going to do now is put these things in a display case. Now I'm not going to use your typical Riker mount, which are those boxes that you see on the wall. That's called a Riker mount or a Riker case. I have 50 different sites here that I have to display. So I'm not going to put up 50 different Riker mounts. For one, I don't have the room and they cost a lot of money. So I'm going to show you a different way that I display things. I've never really seen anyone else do this. I like it, but you know, that's just me. I'm kind of weird sometimes. I'll do that in the next video.